The moment I saw what was hidden on her laptop, my blood turned to ice. It wasn't just a secret. It was a roadmap of her cruelty, a testament to a darkness I never imagined my own sister possessed. For years they chose her. My parents, the world it seemed. Chloe was their golden child, their shining star, and I was just Sarah, the quiet one in her dazzling shadow. But now, standing in their living room, their furious accusations raining down on me, while Chloe stood by, the picture of wronged innocence, I knew the truth was my only weapon. They thought I was the betrayer. They had no idea the monster they'd cherished was about to have her mask ripped away. And her shocking truth? It would shatter everything. As a young woman trying to find my footing in the world, my life was modest, a stark contrast to the glamorous existence Chloe projected. I was a junior graphic designer, passionate about my work, even if it wasn't high-flying. My small apartment, filled with thrift store treasures and ongoing art projects, was my sanctuary. It was a life built on quiet effort and simple joys, a life that felt stable, grounded. I found peace in my books, my sketches, and the easy company of friends who understood my introverted soul. I was for the most part content. Our family, however, operated on a different frequency, one orchestrated by Chloe. 2 years my senior, she was the epitome of charm, always perfectly put together, with an almost magical ability to win everyone over. She moved from one grand venture to the next, always landing on her feet, always with a captivating story. Our parents called her driven, ambitious. I was the sensitive one, the one who needed to break out of her shell. This constant, unspoken comparison was the wallpaper of our family life. Mom and Dad weren't malicious. They loved us, I'm sure. But their adoration for Chloe was a blinding force, and I was often left in the resulting darkness. If Chloe expressed a need, it was met. She erred, it was a lesson. My mistakes were character defects. I'd learned to swallow these injustices, to pretend they didn't carve little pieces out of me. It was just how things were. The first significant tremor in this accepted reality came about a year ago. Chloe announced her grand plan, an online boutique. It would be huge, she declared over dinner, full of ethically sourced, artisanal crafts. My parents practically glowed, offering her a substantial sum, a loan I knew in my gut would never see repayment, to launch her dream. Just days before, I'd pitched a community art project, a passion of mine, needing only a fraction of that for supplies. The response? Maybe next year, Sarah. Money was tight after helping Chloe. The familiar sting felt sharper this time. A few weeks later, disaster struck. I was immersed in a critical freelance design project, one that could genuinely elevate my career. I'd poured days into it. I stepped away from my laptop in my apartment for a mere moment to answer the door. It was Chloe, dropping by unannounced, a common occurrence. She chattered about her boutique, then departed as quickly as she'd arrived. That evening, preparing to send the final files, I discovered the main design layer was corrupted. Utterly, hopelessly gone. Panic seized me. I searched for an explanation, any explanation. The only variable was Chloe. She'd been the only other person near my machine. When I gently questioned her, careful not to sound accusatory, her eyes went wide with feigned innocence. My laptop? Why would she touch my laptop, Sarah? Maybe I'd made a mistake, she suggested, her tone implying I was prone to such errors under stress. My stomach twisted. Her denial was flawless, so convincing I almost doubted my own senses. But there was no concern in her voice, no sympathy for my plight, just a cool dismissal. A tiny, cold seed of suspicion took root. I voiced my concerns to my parents, hoping for a sliver of understanding. Oh, Sarah, my mother sighed, that familiar weariness in her voice. I couldn't seriously think Chloe would sabotage my work, could I? Chloe adored me. I must have deleted it myself. I knew how I got under pressure. Dad merely nodded, adding that Chloe had so much on her plate, I shouldn't add to her stress with accusations. My reality, my experience, dismissed. The seed of suspicion began to sprout, watered by their unwavering bias. After the corrupted file, a chill settled over my interactions with Chloe. Her unannounced visits to my apartment continued, often filled with boasts about her supposedly thriving boutique, though tangible proof of this success remained elusive. She'd borrow items, a scarf, a book, my favorite mug, which would either vanish or reappear damaged. My attempts to address this were met with her light, dismissive laughter. I was being so particular, she'd say it was just a thing. If our parents caught wind of these minor episodes, they'd echo her sentiments. I shouldn't be so possessive, it was good to share. Then she started asking for money. Small amounts at first. Just until a big order came through, she'd plead, her voice earnest. 20 here, 50 there. Still clinging to a sliver of hope about her character, I often relented. Repayment never materialized. Gentle reminders were met with wounded looks. Didn't I trust her? Things were just tight. The guilt was a weapon she wielded with precision. When I finally began to refuse, her visits became cooler, laced with passive-aggressive barbs about my frugal lifestyle, thinly veiled criticisms of my perceived lack of support. The most insidious development was her campaign to subtly poison my relationships with other family members. Aunt Carol, always a confidant, grew distant. Her calls dwindled. When I finally asked Mom, she explained that Chloe had mentioned I was feeling a bit down and jealous of her success, so Carol was just giving me space. Jealous? The accusations stung. I wasn't jealous. I was bewildered and increasingly wary. Chloe was skillfully painting me as the bitter, failing sister, and it seemed people were buying her narrative. My attempts to clarify were met with skepticism, as if I were the one stirring an imaginary pot. Inconsistencies in Chloe's stories became more frequent, more glaring. She'd speak of suppliers in far-flung locales, but specific inquiries about names or crafts were met with vague deflections. Her social media showcased a glamorous, jet-setting entrepreneur, but the backgrounds of her business trip photos sometimes looked suspiciously like local spots or generic hotel rooms. These weren't just white lies. They were building blocks in a wall of deceit I could no longer ignore. I felt a growing sense of isolation, as if I were the only one seeing the cracks in her perfect facade. My parents remained steadfastly in Chloe's camp, celebrating her every supposed victory, while I was increasingly cast as the difficult, ungrateful outlier. The gnawing anxiety was becoming a permanent fixture in my gut. Something was deeply wrong. The dam of my tolerance finally burst during what should have been a joyous celebration, my parents' 30th wedding anniversary. They'd planned a large party inviting scores of relatives and friends. Chloe, in her typical fashion, seized the spotlight, announcing she was commissioning a custom art piece, a sculpture to honor their love. Praise rained down on her for her thoughtfulness, her supposed generosity. A week before the event, I overheard Chloe on a frantic, hushed phone call. I caught only fragments, phrases like needing more time, not what they were expecting, and not having the full amount. My suspicions spiked. On the day of the party, Chloe unveiled her grand surprise with a dramatic flourish. It was distinctly underwhelming. A small, generic glass ornament, the kind one might find in any mall. Yet Chloe wove an elaborate tale of a reclusive, renowned artist she'd had to coax, of intricate, painstaking craftsmanship, of a piece that cost, she announced with well-timed tears, almost $5,000. But Mom and Dad, she declared, were worth every single penny. My parents, overcome, hugged her, proclaiming her the most wonderful daughter imaginable. Later that evening, while helping clear up, I stumbled upon the receipt for the sculpture. It was carelessly tossed in a waste bin in Chloe's old room. It was from a local gift shop, dated just 2 days prior. The price? $49.99. A chill snaked down my spine. $5,000. She had lied so baldly about such a significant sum. Where had the money from our parents, the business loan, the funds surely provided for this expensive gift, actually gone? But the true nightmare was yet to unfold. The following morning, my father discovered his antique watch, a cherished family heirloom, was missing from his dresser. Panic erupted. A frantic search ensued. And then Chloe, tears welling in her eyes, found it. Tucked deep into the lining of one of my old handbags in my closet at their house. She looked at me, her expression a mask of profound sorrow. Why, her look seemed to plead. My parents stared, their faces a battleground of disbelief and crushing disappointment. How could I? My mother whispered, her voice trembling. Was I planning to sell it? Were things that bad for me? Was that why I'd been so resentful? The accusation was so monstrous, so far beyond anything I could comprehend, that I was rendered speechless. I denied it, of course, vehemently, desperately. But the seed Chloe had planted had taken root. They didn't need proof. Chloe, their perfect, generous angel, versus me, this sensitive, jealous sister. It was a foregone conclusion. There was no shouting, no interrogation. Worse, they looked at me with a deep, sorrowful pity that felt like a physical blow. My father quietly stated they were so disappointed in me, deeply disappointed. That was my sentence. That night, alone in my apartment, the injustice burned through me. This wasn't just about favoritism anymore. This was a calculated, vicious attempt to destroy me. Chloe hadn't just lied, she'd framed me as a thief. The hurt was a gaping wound. But beneath it, a new, cold resolve began to form. She had pushed too far. And my parents, in their blind devotion, had chosen to believe her without a moment's hesitation. That realization was the most painful cut of all. But it also solidified my determination. If they wouldn't see the truth, I would drag it into the light. I would uncover what Chloe was truly up to, and I would expose her no matter the cost. The game had changed. My investigation began with Chloe's online boutique. The website was undeniably slick, a testament to good design. But the products themselves told a different story. Her artisanal crafts from around the world bore a striking resemblance to mass-produced items readily available on wholesale websites, albeit with significantly inflated prices and poetic, misleading descriptions. There were no artisan bios, no authentic stories, just vague claims about empowering communities. This was red flag number one. Next, I dissected her social media presence. Chloe meticulously curated an image of a successful, globe-trotting entrepreneur. Photos depicted her in supposedly exotic markets, sipping coffee in charming European cafes, attending prestigious trade shows. I started running reverse image searches. A vibrant shot, allegedly from a bustling Marrakesh bazaar, was revealed to be a stock photo. Another, showcasing her networking at a high-profile conference in Milan, was actually taken at a local wedding venue, its distinctive chandeliers giving it away. She was faking large parts of her success, if not all of it. The missing money remained the most pressing puzzle. The substantial loan from our parents, the phantom $5,000 sculpture. Where was it all going? Chloe didn't lead an overtly extravagant life. She often stayed at our parents' to save money for the business. My mind raced. Gambling? Debts? Something darker? I needed more than hunches. I needed irrefutable proof. The opportunity presented itself unexpectedly. Chloe complained her laptop was acting up, and asked if I, being supposedly good with computers, could take a look. My heart leaped. This was my chance. She guarded her devices ferociously. I feigned reluctance, then agreed, saying I'd need it for a day or two. Just don't snoop, okay, she'd added, a nervous little laugh not quite reaching her eyes. Of course not, I'd replied, my expression carefully neutral. That evening, with her laptop finally in my possession, a mix of dread and eager anticipation coursed through me. I wasn't a professional hacker, but I knew my way around. Her simple password yielded with surprising ease. And then I found it. Buried deep within a folder deceptively labeled Old Uni Notes, was not just evidence of her sham boutique, but something far more disturbing, far more sinister. It wasn't just about drop-shipping cheap trinkets. Chloe was orchestrating a series of sophisticated online scams. There were meticulously crafted email templates promising exorbitant returns on exclusive investments, clearly targeting vulnerable, elderly individuals. Records detailed payments from multiple victims, small amounts escalating to larger sums. Doctored testimonials, fake company registrations, and a hidden browser history filled with forums discussing methods of evasion and grooming unsuspecting targets laid bare her predatory operations. She was also entangled in what appeared to be a romance scam, evidenced by chat logs detailing her systematic manipulation of a lonely widower, convincing him of her dire financial straits to extract money. The ethically sourced crafts were merely a facade, a thin veneer of legitimacy for her actual criminal enterprise. The money she conned, including the sums she'd deceptively acquired from our parents, was being funneled into a complex web of online accounts, some clearly offshore. My hands trembled as the scale of her deceit fully registered. This was beyond anything I could have fathomed. My sister, the family's golden child, was a cold, calculating predator. The shocking truth wasn't merely that she was a liar and a manipulator. She was a criminal, preying on the vulnerable for profit. A wave of nausea washed over me, quickly followed by a surge of pure, unadulterated rage. And then a chilling clarity. I meticulously copied every file, every incriminating email, every damning chat log onto a secure USB drive. I had her. I had everything. This moment wasn't one of simple triumph. It carried the heavy, sickening weight of responsibility. I knew with absolute certainty what I had to do next. The stage for Chloe's unmasking was, with deep irony, set by Chloe herself. She announced she was hosting a small, celebratory dinner at our parents' house. Just to thank Mom and Dad for their incredible support, she gushed, and to share some exciting new developments with the boutique. It also happened to be her birthday weekend, adding another layer of significance to the event for her. Our parents, beaming, invited a few close family friends and our ever-supportive Aunt Carol. It was the perfect, intimate audience for the devastating performance I was about to deliver. I spent the week leading up to the dinner in a state of focused preparation. I organized the mountain of evidence on the USB drive, creating a clear, undeniable narrative of Chloe's fraudulent activities. I printed key documents, damning bank statements, excerpts from her manipulative chat logs, and concrete proof of her fabricated social media persona. A strange, almost unnerving calmness settled over me, the quiet stillness before the storm I knew I was about to unleash. The evening arrived. Chloe was in her element, holding court, regaling everyone with embellished tales of her business acumen and expanding global reach. She presented Mom and Dad with a lavish bouquet and another small, exquisitely wrapped gift, likely another inexpensive trinket disguised as a treasure. They absorbed her every word, their eyes shining with uncritical adoration. My stomach churned, but I maintained a carefully neutral expression, eating little, speaking less, observing the elaborate charade with detached intensity. Then, as coffee and dessert were served, Chloe tapped her glass, a signal for silence. She had some wonderful news, she announced, her smile radiant. She just secured a massive new partnership. Her little boutique was going international for real this time. A round of applause filled the room. My parents looked as though they might spontaneously combust with pride. This was my moment. I rose slowly from my chair. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat, but my voice, when I spoke, was surprisingly steady, cutting through the celebratory hum. That's quite an achievement, Chloe. Especially for a business built on so many lies. An abrupt, uncomfortable hush fell over the room. Chloe's smile froze, then curdled. "Sarah, what are you talking about?" she hissed, her voice suddenly sharp. "Don't you dare try to spoil this." "I'm talking about the truth, Chloe," I replied, my gaze unwavering as I pulled the USB drive from my pocket. "Something this family seems to have a hard time recognizing when it comes to you." My mother started to intervene, her voice laced with warning. "Sarah, this is not the time or place." "Actually, Mom," I cut her off, my focus entirely on Chloe. "I think it's the perfect time and place. Everyone here deserves to know who Chloe really is." I walked to the large smart TV in the living room, the one usually reserved for displaying cheerful family slideshows. "I took the liberty of looking at your laptop, Chloe," I stated, my voice even. "The one you asked me to fix." Her face drained of all color. "You had no right," she stammered, her composure rapidly disintegrating. "No right," I echoed, my voice hardening. "After you framed me for stealing Dad's watch? After you lied about that ridiculously expensive sculpture? After years of your manipulations and deceit?" I plugged the USB drive into the television. I think I had every right. And then I began. I displayed the evidence of her fake website, The reverse image searched photos from her phantom business trips. Murmurs of confusion and disbelief rippled through the room. Chloe was sputtering denials, but her eyes were wide with a dawning, frantic panic. I moved on to the emails. The carefully constructed investment scam targeting the elderly. Aunt Carol gasped audibly, her hand flying to her mouth in shock. I then showed them the chat logs from the romance scam, the heartbreakingly vulnerable messages from the widower she was systematically conning. One of our family friends, a kind, elderly woman, looked visibly distressed. The atmosphere in the room grew thick, charged with disbelief that slowly morphed into dawning horror. My parents sat frozen, their faces ashen, their expressions unreadable. Chloe was now openly weeping, but these were not tears of remorse. They were tears of rage and terror. "She's faked all of this," she shrieked, her voice cracking. "She's jealous. She's always been jealous of me." "Oh, I have the bank transfers too, Chloe," I said calmly, navigating to the next set of files. Statements clearly showing money moving from her victims' accounts into accounts she controlled. And the offshore account details. And the forum posts where you discussed your methods. The final, irrefutable blow was a voice recording. In her arrogance or carelessness, Chloe had accidentally recorded a memo of herself on the phone. In it, she was coaching someone, presumably a fellow scammer, on how to sound more convincing when extracting money from a mark. Her voice, usually so sweet and charming in person, was cold, cynical, and chillingly cruel on the recording. The room plunged into an absolute stunned silence, broken only by Chloe's ragged, desperate sobs. My father slowly, heavily rose to his feet. His face was a mask of profound anguish and a terrible, dawning fury. He looked at Chloe, truly looked at her, perhaps for the very first time without the filter of parental adoration. Is this true, Chloe?" he asked, his voice barely a hoarse whisper. Chloe offered no answer. She just stared at the floor, her carefully constructed golden facade shattered into a million irreparable pieces. The family's beloved prodigy had fallen, and the crash resonated through the silent room. My mother was openly weeping now, not, I realized, for Chloe's immediate predicament, but for the depth of the betrayal, for her own prolonged, willing blindness. The satisfaction I felt was a cold, sharp, and deeply necessary catharsis. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about the truth, a truth that had finally, violently, been dragged into the light. The immediate aftermath was pure chaos. Chloe, stripped bare of her deceptions, completely collapsed, admitting to fragments of her wrongdoing through hysterical sobs, all while desperately trying to minimize the extent of her crimes. Our family friends and Aunt Carol, their faces etched with shock and a profound discomfort, quietly excused themselves. Their pity, I sensed, was for my parents, for Chloe's unfortunate victims, and perhaps in some small measure, for me and what I had clearly endured for so long. Once they departed, a heavy, suffocating silence descended upon the house, punctuated only by my mother's heartbroken weeping and my father's deep, ragged sighs. My father, a man of underlying integrity despite his previous blind spots, was the first to truly grapple with the enormity of Chloe's actions. He looked from Chloe's crumpled form to me, his expression a painful tapestry of sorrow and a newly awakened understanding. "We owe you an apology, Sarah," he said, his voice thick with unshed tears and regret. "A profound one. We failed you." My mother could only nod, tears streaming down her pale face. It wasn't the triumphant, vindicated apology I might have once daydreamed about. It was raw, broken, and devastatingly real. The exciting new developments Chloe had been so eager to announce were, of course, just more threads in her tapestry of lies. The legal repercussions for her actions were severe. While I hadn't directly involved the police that night, the evidence was overwhelming. Some of the individuals she had scammed, once the truth inevitably surfaced, spread by those who had witnessed the reveal, were not inclined to be forgiving. She faced investigations and, ultimately, significant legal consequences that saw her meticulously crafted world implode. She lost everything: her carefully cultivated reputation, her fraudulent business, and most devastatingly for her, the unwavering, blind adoration of our parents. My relationship with my parents became understandably strained. There was an ocean of hurt, years of unspoken resentment on my part, and a mountain of guilt on theirs. They began to try, in clumsy yet heartfelt ways, to bridge the chasm. But trust, once so thoroughly demolished, is a fragile, slow-growing thing. We started talking, truly talking, for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, without Chloe as the central focus or the distorting lens. These conversations were often painful, awkward, but undeniably necessary for any kind of healing to begin. My life now is quieter. It's simpler. I found a new apartment in a different part of the city, creating both physical and emotional space. I threw myself into my graphic design career, and to my surprise, freed from the constant toxic drain of our family drama, I began to truly flourish. I even managed to launch that community art project I had dreamed of, funding it entirely myself. There's a profound peace in my life now, a peace I hadn't fully realized was missing until the storm had passed. The silence in our family home, on the infrequent occasions I do visit, can still feel heavy, imbued with the ghosts of what was. Chloe is navigating the consequences of her choices. When I think of her, I don't feel triumph or even much anger anymore. Mostly, it's a profound sadness for the person she chose to become, and for the deep fractures she inflicted upon our family. Looking back, the act of exposing Chloe wasn't solely about revenge. It was about reclaiming my own voice, my own truth, my own worth. It taught me a harsh lesson, that sometimes the people who are supposed to protect and cherish you can be the ones who inflict the deepest wounds, not always from malice, but often from a profound, willful blindness. And sometimes, you have to be the one to tear down the entire rotten facade, no matter how agonizing the process, to finally let in the light. The deepest satisfaction wasn't in witnessing her downfall, but in achieving my own liberation. I finally understand what it feels like to be seen, to be believed, and most importantly, to have been the one to save myself. And that, I've come to learn, is the most powerful and enduring truth of all.